If I talk about Dawntrail, I have to talk about A Realm Reborn. After all, you cannot consider the Deathly Hallows in Harry Potter without the Philosopher's Stone that started it all. You see, I came to both Final Fantasy XIV and Harry Potter late. 2020 for Final Fantasy XIV, just in case you were wondering. After all, it was all the rage of 2020 and finding stuff to do at home. Endwalker and Dawntrail were thus the two expansion launches that I was a part of. And now, as a dedicated fan of Final Fantasy XIV, I would like to give my thoughts as to why so many feel let down by Dawntrail. Dawntrail set in Tural. Its characters are new but also old, as some are characters that have come before. Some of these we have encountered on our travels across Eorzea. Others we have encountered in faraway worlds or shards that have splintered off from what we know as the source. As fans of Final Fantasy XIV, I am sure that we know very well how Square Enix likes to reuse or at least repurpose creatures, beasts and bosses that we have encountered before. For example, a boss that you might have first encountered in Heaven's Ward returns once again in Shadowbringers as a raid on a shard that is so much like the source but also so very different at the same time. Now, Dawntrail. There are mixed opinions when it comes to this expansion. After all, with its many weaknesses, there is one that truly stands out. Isn't it obvious? Dawntrail is the expansion that came out after the blockbuster release of Endwalker. And with the expectations that Endwalker has left us with, I am actually not surprised that so many fans find themselves let down. Time to circle back here. I am not sure how many of you kept an eye on the events that led up to the release of Dawntrail. I am equally not sure how many of you remember or even aware of how Yoshi P quite clearly commented that Dawntrail was the starting point for the next 10 years of Final Fantasy XIV, and that Endwalker brought a decade-long story arc to a close, and Dawntrail opens a new saga. Now Endwalker. That was the ending of an epic story. That was the ending that came with articles that said things like this. Endwalker has something that most games simply do not have: history. Endwalker sets the precedent that the genre doesn't have to be dances and mounts and hotkeys, but can deliver a compelling and memorable narrative. And of course, Endwalker wraps up the threads from years of questing, of fighting, of exploration, and does so with such success that it completely eclipses 90% of storytelling in any other genre out there. As a fan, I remember it well. With A Realm Reborn, we went from barely crawling to comfortably walking our way into Heaven's Ward. A story that was finally beginning to get interesting. Post Shadowbringers though, the stakes were higher. So high when the enemy we had been fighting for so long, the Garlean Empire, was now beginning to collapse from within. We all know that, at face value at least, that the Garlean Empire stood against everything that Eorzea stood for. After all, Eorzea is a continent that relies on and is often ruled by magic. The Garleans do not have this. They like to portray just how much they despise magic and the heathen ways of the Eorzeans that use it. However, what the Garleans say and what they do often contradicts each other. The Garleans very much want magic, or should I call it ether. They want it to the point of creating technology that would defend and even compete against this magic. And this is why it is so easy for the likes of the final Ascian Fandaniel to get his claws into the Garleans when their Emperor Varys falls. And Xenos, the Garlean prince, well, he always has his own intentions no matter how much they may frustrate Fandaniel.
While I await you, I shall drink a sea of souls and gorge myself upon the darkened moon. Then you shall come to me, all roiling rage and rancor. And the stars shall bear witness to our final contest.
Why don't you come back and fight me, Xenos? I'm waiting. The Endwalker story, as many of you know, does not actually begin in the Endwalker expansion pack. After all, this precedent was very much the case with the Heavensward story, the Stormblood story, and especially the Shadowbringers story. I am convinced that for older fans, they were waiting in desperation for Shadowbringers. After all, the Scions who had become our confidants had been ripped away from us. We were alone. Then again, is the Warrior of Light truly alone? We did have our later allies though, Hian from Stormblood, Emmerich from Heavensward, and of course, Estinian. Poor Estinian, I do not think that he enjoyed being Warrior of Light in our absence. I also do not believe that he could quite comprehend how the likes of two Lalafell, Tartaro and Cryo, could go to such lengths to track him down.
I swear that receptionist was trained as a spy. Not that anyone can escape that Baldessian woman once she has caught the scent of your ether.
If they have resorted to using freelancers, I must assume their attempts to wake the afflicted have failed.
And then we have Endwalker. The official story, well, that begins at the best part, but of course. It starts when we arrive in none other than Sharlayan. Sharlayan. We know about Sharlayan from A Realm Reborn. How could we not? The twins are from there, and their grandfather, Louis Soir Leveillé, plays a huge part in the trailer that was advertising the rebirth of Final Fantasy XIV through none other than A Realm Reborn. However, even though many references are made to Sharlayan, Sharlayan remains a mystical place until Endwalker delivers on all of our expectations. I am sure that we all remember the first glimpses of our arrival to Sharlayan and the absolute elegance that it exudes after all.
Sharlayan, the solitary island nation of the northern seas. Where under the watchful gaze of Thaliak, patron deity of scholars, academics hoard all manner of knowledge and secrets. Once, they deigned to accept foreign students into a distant colony maintained in the Dravanian hinterlands. How swiftly they abandoned it once the first Garlean boot set hostile foot on Ala Megan soil. So averse to the prosecution of war, these men of wisdom, your would-be allies.
Oh wow, that truly is a scholar's paradise, isn't it? Sharlayan. It is everything we have seen before. It is also everything that we have not seen before. That is the beauty when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV. You get introduced to a new concept, and that concept keeps coming back and back and back again. This familiarity is what keeps drawing us fans back to the game. And indeed, as a writer, I know very well that it is introducing new concepts to then flesh them out and then have them belong to a greater whole that makes fans want to come back to enjoy even more of the story. Sharlayan. We go there on a simple mission. There are those towers. There are the Telepheroi. My, Xenos, you had been ever so busy back then, hadn't you? And then there were the Tempered. For a place that claims to be Eorzea's version of Switzerland, you sure do play a very important part in Eorzea's functioning, don't you? After all, when the Telephroi leave many confounded, where else are you to go but Sharlayan? Someone there is sure to know the answer to what you seek, don't they? On a side note here to all non-European viewers on my Switzerland reference. Switzerland is a country which is pretty much located in the centre of Europe. This is a country where German, Italian and French are equally spoken. This is also a country that during the First and the Second World Wars stayed neutral. Doesn't this remind you exactly of Sharlayan? Now, Endwalker. From the trailers we know that the stakes are high. It is the concluding expansion of the Hydaelyn arc after all. And because it is the end, it is also the time to confront certain truths. Certain truths to how Aetheres came to be in its current form, and with it, those 13 shards. Speaking of those 13 shards, we are due another 10 years of Final Fantasy XIV, aren't we? However, comedy break here. It is not just Y'shtola, Urianger and Thancred coming along with us. Oh no, no, no. We now have our darling Graha who begged to come on an adventure with us, and of course Estinian. Our most unfortunate bodyguard.
Estinian Valino, formerly of the Order of the Knights Dragoon in Ishgard.
Formally, at least. And what, pray tell, is your profession now?
For Sharlayan's supposedly non-interventionist measures with events that happen outside of its borders, it sure does have very strict measures to actually get into their borders. Sharlayan exudes importance. Alphino Leveillé is perhaps the worst form of this. He sure lorded over us in the beginning just because it was his grandfather, Louis Soir, who founded the Scions of the Seventh Dawn in the first place. Oh, goodness me. That was not very Switzerland of you now, was it, Master Louis Soir? So is it any wonder that one of the most memorable events to happen before one half of we Scions leave Sharlayan for Radz-at-Han is for a certain mother of a certain little Lord Alphino to come and speak with us? I love you, Emilians. I hated you, Fortunal. I hated you for what you did to my precious twins.
Alphino, Alizé, as of this moment, you shall no longer bear the name of Leveillé.
What?
Father.
But in the end, you made up for your actions now, didn't you? So it's Sharlayan first and Radz-at-Han next. In Sharlayan, Estinian was so very much a dragon out of his nest. In Radz-at-Han, well, let us just say that whilst we had to use an experimental aetheryte to a place that we had not actually been to before, our trusty and frankly well-travelled bodyguard did not have to endure such a journey. He had already discovered Radz-at-Han in his travels after all. Travels that took him away from our beloved Emmerich and Ishgard. But I am certain that you can agree here that one Estinian Valino had long outgrown the constraints of what was once a very isolationist nation. Well, isolationist until the Asians began to whisper into the ears of a certain archbishop, that is. Radz-at-Han was like Sharlayan, but also so very different from Sharlayan at the same time. It is a place we explored. It is a place where we battled. It is a place where we discovered that even a son of the great Midgard Sommer could rule. You sure got all excited about that now, didn't you, Estinian? Estinian, Thancred, Urianger and I, where we were doing great works, you see. We were doing great works creating talismans to ward against more and more poor souls getting corrupted by the effects of the Telephroi towers appearing all over Eorzea. Talismans which just happened to be made out of none other than dragon scales. Estinian! You hadn't gone all Nidhogg on us again, had you? But then again, that Aura, Valshan, was the most peculiar boy now, wasn't he?
Tell me, how did you acquire those scales?
Curious that it concerns you so. But worry not. They were freely given by the dragon with whom our satrap has forged a lawful pact.
You recall how the twins, Graha and Y'shtola, stayed behind in Sharlayan, don't you? Well, they were innocent, you see. They were just camping out in the archives, browsing information, and more information until they became aware of increased activity from the Gleaners. They even met with a handsome little bun-bun by the name of Erenville. Those four, well, they were simply minding their own business until they got arrested and landed right in front of the forum themselves. Oh, look at you, Y'shtola, look at you! Walking straight through the seating rather than around it. And then there goes the forum giving this awfully cryptic warning about something even they cannot remember. What would you call this? The opposite of a Deus Ex Machina? Something to give the rest of us time in Rad's at hand to finish up what we needed to do? Just in case you were wondering, a Deus Ex Machina is an unexpected power or event saving a seemingly hopeless situation, especially as a contrived plot device in a play or novel. And after that, our darling Graha got to save the day. Well, he deserved to do that at least once now, didn't he? And then it so happened that our very own Lord Commander got us right into enemy territory. Well, not exactly Emmerich. It was his second-in-command, Lucia Junius, that did that. Square Enix once again tying up all those old storylines in Endwalker, right? After all, it was already long established that Lucia Junius was a Gallian. So of course it would make sense that she was the one who would get us right into my Xenos' territory. Oh, Xenos, 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 your homeland. Your homeland was in a right old state. The ravishes of internal war, I suppose. And did you care? Of course not. You were off gallivanting with Fandaniel. I know you Guardians also love to hate magic, but you were just always doing your own thing, weren't you, Xenos? You had 3 samurai swords because you couldn't wield ether. And when you finally could wield ether, through Ascian shenanigans, I might add, well, you did become quite the dastardly reaper now, didn't you? All those fangirls were so upset when all that thickness just turned out to be armour now, didn't they? I previously mentioned how Garleans love to hate magic, but then do everything they can do to replicate the effects of ether with their technology, didn't I? Well, when exploring Garlemald, you slowly realise that something is not quite right with its surviving citizens. They are downcast, they are grieving, but they are also hearing the voice of their deceased emperor through the radio. Isn't this foreshadowing to what Hydaelyn ends up being? The twins, of course, find their place in Garlemald, but us? We have more extravagant feats to face, on none other than the moon. Y'shtola really knocked things on the head in this next bit, didn't she? And then, little by little, we progress into none other than the epic showdown that we feel is coming, that we know is coming. But oh my goodness, Endwalker was the story that just kept on giving and giving until its most epic conclusion. We all remember Endwalker, Shadowbringers, Stormblood, and even Heavensward. But most of us seem to forget how A Realm Reborn was. It was the resurrection of an otherwise failed franchise. But it also remains the weakest part of the Hydaelyn arc overall. Now A Realm Reborn. From the trailers, it looks like an epic story. And if you have come across documentaries on YouTube, you may have come to learn that the epic story in-game was all tied to the epic way in which Square Enix shut down the original servers of Final Fantasy Online.
So it was then, on Sunday, November 11th, 2012, just over a year after Final Fantasy XIV was originally launched, with Dalamud hanging in the sky, that the servers were finally turned off. And as they did, a trailer dropped, showing players what was to become of their old home.
Dawntrail versus Endwalker. Dawntrail versus A Realm Reborn. Compare Dawntrail to Endwalker, and of course, you will be disappointed. Endwalker was the grand finale. It was the grand finale to the original story. The original story surrounding Hydaelyn. Oh, I did miss Hydaelyn in this expansion. I suppose her absence from Final Fantasy XIV is the same as Voldemort's absence from Harry Potter. Even the stage play made that more than obvious.
People always look when you three are together.
Hogwarts will be the making of you, Albus. I promise you there is nothing to be frightened of there. You're Albus Potter.
Did I mention that both The Realm Reborn and Dawntrail have weak stories? Well, let us begin with The Realm Reborn. We arrive in Gridania. Well, I arrived in Gridania because my starting class was Archer. I was not a proper gamer back then, so I looked it up online that Archer was perhaps one of the better starter classes. There is a lot of wandering from quest signpost to quest signpost until we get the first cutscene with the Scions of the Seventh Dawn.
Look, someone's already here. Oh dear, is that a sword in the stump? Bad idea. Really bad idea. It takes a lot less than that to incite the Green Wrath, you know. Why, the first time we came to the 12's Wood, we almost ended up as a train's dinner, just for crashing
The
our
Scions
airship.
of the Seventh Dawn. They were once only our acquaintances. Now they are our best friends. However, we cannot ignore the fact that the Scions were the ones who truly drew us into the underlying conflict of the Hydaelyn arc. I am certain that we all remember the curious sort that those Ascians were now, don't we? We might also remember learning about how most of these Ascians were, in fact, enthralled to the likes of Zodiac. At least Hydaelyn was not a primal that we could accidentally become mindless minions of, correct? Well, light versus dark. The good guys versus the bad guys. This is an age-old story. This is a story which kept the Hydaelyn arc going for 10 years and attracted millions of gamers and fantasy lovers alike. Dawntrail, though, well, it starts a little like the Hildebrand story does. The protagonist is the one who runs into you. The protagonist is the one who brings you along for the ride. The protagonist is the one who is the centre of the story. But for something like that to truly be successful, well, fans actually have to like the protagonist. There are some Final Fantasy XIV fans out there who do not even like Hildebrand. Yes, I know, being the protagonist, being the warrior of light in the story is far more alluring now, isn't it? Wuk-Lamat. She came across as truly immature when we met her, didn't she?
Just so we're clear, I wasn't startled by the beast earlier. It caught me by surprise, that's all.
Forgive me, but I fail to see a difference.
I'm getting hungry. Let's be done with this so we can eat.
Hildebrand came across as immature as well, but he did develop into his own character. Wuk-Lamat, though, well, Dawntrail is supposed to be her story now, isn't it? Then why did I find myself rooting more for the likes of Koana instead?
I see. In that case... It seems I'm no longer a claimant. I am now free to participate, I trust.
Wuk-Lamat reminds me a little of Harry Potter. However, Harry Potter was a sort of character where readers could live through him. When you read Harry Potter, you become Harry Potter. Well, when it comes to Wuk-Lamat, you cannot live through her. In fact, she keeps reminding you that you are not the main character, and you do not even have the privilege of living through her on most of her adventures. Shame on you, Square Enix. Where is the cutscene where Wuk-Lamat hunted down the alpaca? Well, when it comes to A Realm Reborn though, the story is weak. But things happen to us. Other characters come to us. As Warriors of Light, we do not fundamentally change as a character. But we were in the driving seat. We were in the driving seat when we joined the Scions. We were in the driving seat when we joined the Grand Companies and when we fought against the Ultima Weapon. Indeed, we were always in the driving seat as we went from being a stranger to being a hero. Dawntrail, though, the events leading up to the main story made us think that Cryo would play a big part. The events leading up to the main story made us think that we would go on another adventure and live through Wuklamut and she became the next Dawn Servant. I mean, come on. We all want to be the main character in the story, don't we? But Wuklamut, she should have been a template for us to fill. Additionally, there ought to have been foreshadowing to Wuklamut changing, maturing, being worthy of the title of Dawn Servant. A Realm Reborn had the weak story, but it was a story that set us up as the main character. It was a story where we felt in control. It was a story where little by little we found joy in exactly where our Warriors of Light ended up. Dawntrail. It had amazing sights, amazing creatures, amazing worlds. But the execution of the story was fragmented at best. We fans loved the Scions. We fans also very much loved the idea of Cryo finally getting the chance to shine. Instead, what we got was Wuklamut. We got a main character we could not grow with. We got a main character who hogged all of the attention and did it without shame. I must say here that Wuklamut bringing in Koana as her co-Dawn Servant is something positive that she did end up doing. The Warrior of Light and the Scions versus Wuklamut and her entourage. The Warrior of Light had the Scions coming to her. The Warrior of Light had the Scions inviting her to join their organization. The Warrior of Light had various important people acknowledging her for her accomplishments. All the while, the same Warrior of Light showed modesty. Or could that be an effect of our Warriors of Light not speaking? Wuklamut, on the other hand, well, she was rather one-dimensional. She was the one who travelled across the waters to find the Warrior of Light. She was the one who gave the Warrior of Light no choice but to join her. After all, if we wanted to continue with Dawntrail, we had no choice but to become a part of Wuklamut's entourage. At least Hildebrand had his own entourage who chose to follow him. At least we could join him and leave him whenever it took our fancy. Wuklamut, not so much. Indeed, whenever we did start to build connections with the other characters, she just had to reappear and take credit for all the hard work that we did. How much we like or dislike a character usually plays a big part in the story, and with Wuklamut, well, when it came to A Realm Reborn, well, that was a two-pronged approach. That story let the original players become reacquainted with the world that got destroyed. That story also let new players such as myself become familiar not only with the story of Final Fantasy XIV, but with the world of Final Fantasy as a whole. I will say here that I have been vaguely aware of the Final Fantasy franchise for a long time. However, it was only during lockdowns when I saw others playing Final Fantasy online that I realized that I could become much more than a simple Sims player. Final Fantasy XIV is miles away from playing the likes of The Sims, by the way, even if some Sims players have the most adventurous sorts of play styles. Now, a fan, also termed an aficionado or enthusiast, is a person who exhibits strong interest or admiration for something or somebody, such as a celebrity, a sport, a sports team, a genre, a politician, a book, a movie, a video game, or an entertainer. Those of us who are fans of Final Fantasy XIV are fans of what Naoki Yoshida managed to rebuild. Fans like us are the ones who gathered those crystals to finally speak with her, the one that many call Heidelin. Fans like us are the ones who fought alongside Emmerich to save Estinian from Nidhogg. Mind you, it might have been Estinian who was the one who finally helped the tortured worm known as Nidhogg find peace. Fans like us were also the ones who fought for Hien to retake Doma. Fans like us were also the ones who stood alongside Rauban and Lys to regain independence for Alamigo. And more, the characters around us knew who we were, and we gained such recognition for our accomplishments that it made me, at times, blush.
Of course, with an experienced white mage such as yourself accompanying us as well, those requiring more involved treatment will be in safe hands. Raya O sends her regards, by the way.
And then fans like us who, through our own Warriors of Light, finally received the recognition from all those we helped over the years to fight against our greatest enemy, despair. Yes, Square Enix does like to create stories around themes like these, don't they? It is a pity that they went and ruined it with Wukla in Dawntrail though, because even in the very end, when we beat the final boss, well, Wukla just had to go back to hogging all the attention now, didn't she?
Sting! Listen to me!